General Hyten, each leg of our nuclear triad has its own value. Is it fair to say that our ballistic missiles have strength in numbers?
That's one of the big values of our ballistic missiles. 400 ballistic missiles create a huge targeting problem for any adversary. The only way to get after 400 hardened nuclear missiles is with a whole bunch of incoming weapons. And if you decide to attack those, then you pretty much are guaranteeing that we'll attack back. That's deterrent in a nutshell, and that creates a huge element of our deterrent process.
Sometimes referred to as a missile sink for the enemy?
It would be a missile sink. It would be a weapon sink. It would be a very, very difficult target to impact.
I have heard proposals from some in Congress and in Washington suggesting that we ought to eliminate our Minuteman III fleet and cancel the replacement for that fleet. If we were to take that step to unilaterally cut over 400 ballistic missiles and command centers, wouldn't it be like giving the Russians and the Chinese 400 free warheads to target something else in the United States or around the world?
I don't understand how, with the threats that we face today, which are growing, not shrinking, we would make a decision today as a nation to lessen our overall strategic deterrent. That makes no sense to me, and my best military advice is that we do not do that.
One common argument I hear in defense of that position is, why do we spend so much money on weapons we never use? It's not that much money. I mean, it's only, 3 to 6% of the budget, of the defense budget, depending on where we are in the cycle. Wouldn't you say, though, that we've been using our nuclear weapons every single day for 74 years?
We use them every day, and Senator, the people that say that, I actually find that a little bit insulting, because the men and women who go to work every day, underneath the water, underneath the ground, in the air, that provide that strategic deterrent, they are doing the mission every day. It is the most active mission. Strategic deterrence is not a passive mission. Deterrence doesn't exist just because you have 1,550 deployable nuclear weapons on the New START Treaty. You have to do that mission every day, and that's what the men and women of my command do, and they're proud to do it. And so it is an active mission, one of the most active missions we have. When you send a nuclear submarine out with 160 sailors on board, do you think they're thinking of themselves as a passive, functional mission? No, they are an active warfighting mission.
And the whole point of our nuclear deterrence, of the way we use that force, is not to launch and detonate those missiles, but to stop our adversaries from launching and detonating theirs to begin with.
Secretary Mattis asked me, what's the use of nuclear weapons? Why do we have nuclear weapons? And the answer is to prevent others from using nuclear weapons on us. But in order to do that, you have to be ready. It's the Washington analogy. The best way to avoid war is to be prepared for war. If you're not prepared, you run the risk of an attack.
And if Russia or China, or perhaps Russia and China combined, had clear, demonstrable nuclear overmatch against the United States, there's no doubt who would win if there were, in fact, a nuclear exchange. What impact would that have on the conventional forces and the strategic thinking of those nations as against the United States and our allies?
In my opening statement, for the record, I said that nuclear war can't be fought. Can't be won, therefore it must never be fought. Therefore, we must be ready to fight it every day. That's the way I look at it. That's a complicated thing for some people to understand, but if you're not ready, somebody could take a step over the line. If there is an overmatch, somebody could think they could get away with it, and that could create the worst day in the history of the world, the worst day in the history of our country. We never want that to happen. In order to do that, I believe in peace through strength, not peace through unilateral disarmament.
And if you were sitting in your position or in the head of state position in a country like Japan or South Korea that depends on the extended deterrence of the United States, and the United States weakened its nuclear triad or even eliminated one of their legs, what kind of influence would that have on your thinking?
What I'd be concerned about from a U.S. perspective is that would cause some of our allies to decide they need their own nuclear deterrent. One of the goals we have as a country is to eliminate the proliferation of nuclear weapons, not just in our adversaries, but around the world. A world with fewer nuclear weapons is a better world, but we have to be able to defend ourselves. And so we want our allies to understand that we can defend them too. That's what extended deterrence is all about, and that means you have to be ready to support their contingencies as well.
Thank you, General. I understand that some opponents of our nuclear force or critics of it say that we shouldn't start a new arms race or be engaged in an arms race. I'll simply observe based on what you've said here today, that it's much cheaper to win an arms race than it is to lose a war.